Okay, I literally forgot to just do the starting soon, but that's okay. We'll just get right into it. I have a quick short break, so I'm just like blazing through all of these commentary and commentary and recaps that I have pending in this YouTube folder that I have. Anywho, darlings, I hope you are having a fabulous time. So we've heard about the alleged victims of Diddy's dating back to the 90s all the way to the present day, allegations of physical harm done by him and or associates of Diddy. And I'm not sure what the timeline is, whether this victim, Joy Dickerson, had filed her case against Diddy prior to the Cassie case or shortly after. But referring to her, Diddy's attorney in a preliminary statement said, end quote, without addressing the complainant's numerous false, offensive, and salacious accusations, which the Combs defendants vehemently deny, substantially all of the claims purportedly alleged by Joy Dickerson Neal, who is the plaintiff, cannot survive this motion to dismiss because they were brought under statutes which did not exist during the time the alleged misconduct occurred against corporate entities that were not formed or in existence. End quote. So, Diddy's attorney is trying to get this motion dismissed by Ms. Joy Dickerson Neal, who is another alleged victim of Diddy. Um, she is alleging to have been given substances which adversely limited her ability to make sound decisions, let alone walk independently without assistance during an incident where she alleges she spent some time with Diddy in NYC sometime in the 90s, wherein they had gone to a music studio and another place where she was intimately assaulted via admission by her friends who've actually seen the alleged private video of this assault, um, where it was her and Diddy um, in a private, intimate capacity where she would have never um, consented to having the act done or even getting the same act recorded. So this is again the lawsuit that Diddy's lawyers are hoping to get tossed out because their contention is, well, if the alleged did happen, it is outside of the statute of limitation for when they can actually like file it and or at the time of the misconduct as alleged, the entities, the corporate entities hadn't yet been formed or weren't even in existence because I believe Ms. Joy is also suing um, not only Diddy but as a co-defendant, like his companies as well. So just about whoever has had a I will just put it in this way, a bad interaction with Diddy and or his um, squad members. They're they're all coming out of the woodworks now, to again shine a light to the horrific incidents that had happened between them and Diddy allegedly. And I don't want to discount that you know, they should have said something. Like I saw in some comments, like, these people, if there was harm done against their person, they should have brought this to the brought this to the police or like a lawyer or something, some person who would have had like access to bringing this to light in a court of law. And it isn't always black and white. When you're a victim of anything, it isn't always black and white. That you'd be able to just like assess what has happened to you, process it, and within a 24-hour period, or even like a week or so, or what have you, is able to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, go walk inside a lawyer's office and or a police station. Um, it's very it's very quick for us to say, well, you should have done this. But if we are not the person who now has to pick up the pieces and piece together that puzzle and find that courage in them to seek justice for themselves for the crime done against them, it, it's very very difficult to tell someone, well, you should just get over it, or you should stop talking about it because you've been talking about it for like years on end. Because if we are not the person who again was not the victim of the crime, there's very little room for us unless we are law enforcement in some capacity. um, is attached to like that case, then we really don't have room to give a definitive like opinion on it. And on this note, I am curious though, why this alleged victim, Joy Dickerson Neal, seems to be like an afterthought for Diddy and his legal team. I mean, if we can recall the Cassie bombshell, when it went public that she was indeed filing a lawsuit or had filed a lawsuit alleging misconduct against Diddy and his team. Diddy and his team rallied together and settled that case before it saw the light of day in a courthouse. Like before a shadow of that docket was even like put to light, before a judge and a potential jury has been selected. None of that. With like Little Rob's lawsuit, Diddy and his legal team was quick to give a response, denying outright the allegations by Little Rob in his lawsuit as simply a money grab, sort of a shakedown. I'm paraphrasing here. And even when the feds showed up at Diddy's doors to let everyone know they're working this case, people had come out and like given a statement. But then in this particular case, though, with Miss Dickerson, however, Diddy and his team has largely like ignored it. And by ignore, I mean there wasn't like a rush or like an urgency to deny or even threaten to countersue the alleged victim to drop their lawsuit. Obviously, we're not um, legal representatives here. I'm not a lawyer, obviously, and does not know the ins and outs of like the the state of New York's like laws. But it's just I'm just wondering, is the ignorance, the largely not really giving it too much thought or giving it energy enough to issue a statement, um, like rushing to issue a statement? Is it because it happened in 1990 and that is why perhaps Diddy's legal team is thinking, you know what, it's past the legal statute of limitations in New York, and it should just be like dismissed in their minds because it could just be another person alleging a crime committed against them. but are actually just trying to settle for money. I mean, look, whether it is a crime that was committed truly or the crime was not committed, I think in this like particular instance, I feel like Diddy and his team should just take everything seriously. I mean, look, I don't know how, like going off of the videos, right? The video rather of Cassie getting literally assaulted by Diddy in that video that has been like circulating everywhere, news everywhere. I don't know how you can even forget that you had done that deed to another human being. Like when Diddy said, like, there's no truth to the allegations when Cassie's lawsuit, some of the verbiage in her lawsuit had like leaked out. He and his team had denied that it happened, but then it's like, sir, I just wonder how do you forget something like that? Like that literally happened. Goodness gracious. But then at the same time though, with dismissing him and his team dismissing this lawsuit from Ms. Joy Dickerson as just another like money grab, it sounds like something that he would almost always stick to. Like that would be the script, right? That anybody who's going to try to sue him now and moving forward or whatever have you, it's just always going to be a money grab. But it's like, my goodness. Look, Diddy's legal team for sure is racking up the billable hours for all of the lawsuits against him and his companies. They are definitely the ones winning here because billable hours are all kinds of dollar signs next to it. These lawyers largely are not cheap. I mean, they can charge upwards of like 8K per hour if you get the shark of the sharks sort of lawyer. I'm just saying, like, holy cow. But now, on top of that, now we have a brand new victim who had just come out and he has come forward with allegations of, again, another intimate assault against her person by Diddy when she was 22 years of age. I don't know if this is the seventh or eighth lawsuit for Diddy. I don't know. But the latest accuser, Crystal McKinney is her name, is a former model and winner at MTV's 1998 Model Mission Competition show. According to the complaint filed in New York, the alleged victim claims that she was drugged and intimately assaulted in 2003 by Diddy following a men's fashion week event in NYC. The victim alleges that she was 22 years old at the time when she first met Diddy at a dinner and where he allegedly came onto her in a sexually suggestive manner, after which he allegedly told her to call him later. And although, per the complaint, the alleged victim felt like, confused, maybe was like thinking, do I go? Do I not? I mean, on the one hand, he's a famous person who could potentially help her with her career. On the other hand, also a complete stranger who obviously she has no prior relationship with, like even as a friend, right? So she doesn't know his person. But she did end up going to where Diddy was, and she was extended an invitation allegedly to his recording studio later that night when Diddy allegedly offered her marijuana, and which she claims to have been laced with a narcotic or some other intoxicating substance, um, because she felt like intoxicated, and she further alleges that Diddy, when he saw that she was very intoxicated, demanded her to follow him as he physically led her to the bathroom of the recording studio. And while there, that's where Diddy allegedly began to kiss the victim without her consent and later forced her to perform oral copulation on him, again, per her complaint. After the alleged assault, Miss McKinney claimed she felt more and more woozy and then thereafter lost consciousness altogether. And she later woke up in the back of a cab to heading back to her apartment, which at the time belonged to the designer she was working for, or belonged to the designer she was working for at the time. So she had her interaction with Diddy, blacked out, and then ended up like being put in the back of a cab to head home. Damn. And as her consciousness returned, that's when the plaintiff realized she'd been essayed by Diddy. The plaintiff is suing Diddy, Bad Boy Records, Sean John Clothing LLC, and Universal Music Group Inc. The plaintiff is suing the defendants in violation of New York Victims of Gender Motivated Violence Protection Law, which, according to the New York City Council, gives survivors of gender motivated acts of violence more time to pursue civil actions by extending the statute of limitations and also applies to such acts committed by parties who direct, enable, participate in, conspire in, or conspire in a gender motivated act of violence. It must be noted that the plaintiff is seeking an unspecified amount in punitive and compensatory damages as she continues to experience mental health struggles stemming from the alleged assault and has since ceased pursuing a career in modeling. It's just very sad. Again, I go back to we don't know how crimes committed against another will affect the victim, and obviously don't know how it affects the abuser or the terrorizer. But I think when we start to put a timeline or a time frame to when victims should be able to gather their thoughts, relive in their minds the incident where they had been victimized, and then having to openly relive that, like say in front of like a court jury, or even in front of a lawyer, or even in front of like a law enforcement investigator. It is very harrowing, very very harrowing. It's just horrible, and it's like again re-victimizing them all over again. So for those, it's very telling for me that like there were so many people who largely still stood side by side with Diddy, but like just kept their silence. And then you have people who are now like slowly walking away from him. And it's like, I don't know. It's just, it's very sad. And I hope that the victims, um, the alleged victims, that they find peace, and that, you know, they find in their future hope and courage, because again being a victim and like being re-victimized again by having to tell your story, that takes a lot of courage, a lot of courage. And I hope that they have people who really truly rally around them, who like protect them and love them and believe them. Because you know, a lot of times it's hard for like when victims come forward, it's hard for a lot of people to look at them as victims rather than people who just want attention. And especially true when the victim is of um, a lower power dynamic, right? Because that the um, the difference in the power dynamic does play a huge part in it. So we will leave this here. I'm sorry I ranted, but darlings, I hope that if we can at least throughout our days continue to try to remember to leave grace for others and to also try to be a little bit kinder each of our days as we move forward with our lives and to remember to journey in gratitude and again try to be kinder with our words. Maybe our this green earth, this blue earth could be a little bit more kinder to each one of us. Darlings, I shall see you in the next go round. Toodaloo for now. Bye.